Hello everyone, this is Jack Frost with your weekly update for the Ethereum Technicals and XRP. I'll aim to do a quicker update though every time I say that. The video is only like a minute or two shorter, so we'll see how that goes. For Ethereum, for the last completed week, price has continued sideways within support at 2400 and resistance at 2800. This candlestick ending with a doji on this data source. The upper wick of this candlestick testing resistance at 2800 a bit more thoroughly than the last couple of weeks. Volume is increasingly weakening with weaker pushes. Overall, the strongest volume does remain on the bearish candlesticks. ADX continues to decline at the weekly time frame, showing no clear trend. ATR is declining as price moves downward and a little bit sideways for the short term. An overall bullish outlook for volatility, with ATR previously increasing along with price and then declining and increasing again along with price. And as ADX declines for Ethereum at the weekly time frame, we use the model of stochastics plus support and resistance. This model suggests an upward swing may continue towards resistance, where price may more thoroughly test it at 2800 or potentially up to 3580, price finding that resistance point, while stochastics may enter overbought. On the technical daily chart for Ethereum, we see more detail for price's recent sideways movement, testing resistance quite thoroughly for the last week. On the daily time frame, moving within resistance at 2720 and support at 2400. On the daily time frame, volume is continuing to decline with increasingly weaker pushes. For the midterm on the daily time frame, we see strongest volume on this bullish candlestick here, though for the short term we do see some support for downwards movement, though these pushes are continuing to weaken. ADX is continuing to decline on the daily time frame as well, showing no clear trend. If ADX did increase from this point, it would indicate an already extreme trend, which would have some weakness and may see an unsustainable trend if ADX does increase, though at this point with ADX declining, price is expected to continue to consolidate. ATR is declining for the short term as price moves sideways, previously increasing along with price. And with ADX continuing to decline on the daily time frame for Ethereum, we continue to use the model of stochastics plus support and resistance, which at the daily time frame suggests a downward swing may occur at this point, to where price may more thoroughly test support at 2400 or potentially down to 2100 or 1800, where price finds one of these support points, while stochastics may enter oversold. It is always important to note that we rely more heavily on the Elliott Wave count, particularly for cryptocurrencies like Ethereum as well as XRP. And so if you do want the Ethereum Elliott Wave count, as always, you can sign up for that using the link in the description below at pureelliottwave.com. On the XRP weekly chart, price is expected to continue upwards. This wave count has not changed at the weekly time frame. I'm mostly just adding this for the additional data. All of the invalidations for minor wave 4 moving into minor wave 1 price territory at this point, 0.6585. That remains the same, as well as the target for intermediate wave 3 calculated at 6.11 and the target for primary wave 3 calculated at 27.44. This low at the end of minor wave 4 on the weekly chart is this low here on the daily chart. We see a bit more detail for the upwards movement for the beginning stages of minor wave 5. The targets here are also the same if this target for intermediate wave 3 calculated at 6.11 is reached, while the structure for minor wave 5 remains incomplete. Then we will use the higher target calculated at 6.42, calculated at minor degree. This best fit channel has been slightly altered with the end of minuet wave 2 within minute wave 3 of minor wave 5, now labeled complete at this low here instead of the previous low here. The best fit channel has been altered to fit it, potentially offering some resistance to the upwards movement, though with the increasing bullish range and momentum for these third waves, particularly at minute degree, we do expect price to break above the best fit channel, most likely, particularly if price wants to reach this confidence point at 3.4. That would see minor wave 5 moving above the end of minor wave 3, avoiding a truncation. And within minor wave 5, any second wave corrective movement cannot move below its start at 1.6140, meaning if minute wave 2 just here wants to continue any lower, it cannot move below this point. And while it may look like minuet wave 2 just here has moved below the end of minute wave 2, you can check the edge here. That is at 2.08 and that is at 2.07. And so this is ever so slightly higher, though if price does move much lower, then the labeling within minor wave 5 at minute degree will have to be altered. At this point, this wave count doesn't have the best proportion, particularly with the duration and depth of minuet wave 2. However, if we saw minute wave 1 complete at this high and minute wave 2 complete at this low, just moving the labeling up 1 degree, the subdivisions within minute wave 1 would just be too unreasonable and just simply don't subdivide that well, particularly at this point. However, if The wave count is invalidated at minuet degree, with minuet wave 2 moving below the start of minuet wave 1 just here at 2.0780. Then the wave count would have to be altered at minute degree, and you will get a complete update for that in the next video if that does happen. However, at this point, with price expected to continue upwards overall for primary and intermediate degree third waves, we also do expect minute and minuet third waves to increase with increasing bullish range and momentum. On the technical weekly chart for XRP, price has continued overall sideways for the last little bit, hovering just above support at 2.0. Volume continues to decline with increasingly weaker pushes. A push on a recent bearish candlestick does see some potential short-term support for downwards movement, though as always the volume pushes are increasingly weaker, seeing volume to overall decline. ADX continues to decline on the weekly time frame for XRP. ATR is declining as price moves overall sideways for the short to mid-term. And with ADX declining for XRP, the model of stochastics plus support and resistance suggests the recent downward swing may be complete, with stochastics falling just short of oversold. While price tested support at 2.0, an upward swing may now occur towards resistance at 3.2, where price finds that resistance point while stochastics may enter overbought. On the technical daily chart for XRP, we see more detail for price's recent sideways movement within the last week, still hovering around support at 2.0, on the daily time frame moving between support at 2 and resistance at 2.8. Volume continues to decline after recent pushes on this bearish candlestick here, the strongest short to mid-term volume, though we do see some support for short-term upwards movement, and particularly very short-term downwards movement. Overall volume is declining as price moves sideways. ADX is increasing with a bearish trend. While ADX began to increase from a low point and below both DX lines, it is the strongest bearish signal that it can. ATR is declining as price continues to move sideways, continuing to overall decline as price moves sideways for the mid to long term on the daily time frame. And with this trend indicated by ADX being in its very early stages, it does expect price to continue lower, the trend potentially continuing to where ADX may reach extreme or very extreme conditions. RSI and money flow may enter oversold and or exhibit some divergence before the trend may be in danger of ending at the daily time frame. With this strong bearish signal from ADX, it is possible for us to have a bearish alternate Elliott wave count in the following video. And as always, we do rely more heavily on the Elliott wave count, but it is still important to take this technical data into consideration for a more broad and objective view of the market. That's all for me with your weekly update for XRP and the Ethereum Technicals. Thank you, and I hope everyone has a good week.